everybody. Welcome to a Wednesday afternoon here on Kobold Press. I'm your littlest red dot. This is Wolfgang. You know who that is. Can't wait.
Hello.
And,
Yeah.
we're here to talk all things Shadow Realm today, which seems too apropos considering the fact we've got Courts of the Shadow Fey currently running, and I have a feeling that you've got some things that you might be able to share as well. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, my glasses aren't eyeshadow. Sorry, chat. They just fade into nothing. They just fade into nothing. Okay. Well, we have to start with announcements because there's always some things, as I say, some beans to be spilled. And the biggest one is, for those of you going to GenCon, we want to help you get a badge, and we need your help running games. Want to run some Kobold Press stuff? There's a link right there in chat. It's going to lead you over to a form that you can fill out and kind of give us some info about what you might like to participate in or like be involved in, because we could sure use some of your talent at our tables to make Gen Con all that much more awesome. So check it out. There's a tight deadline on this, everybody, June 4th, so that's like 2 days. 2 days.
Fill it out today.
So fill it out right now while we're chatting at you. And then you can come back and tell us the success of having hit the submit button. You also note I am not in my usual setup. I'm at Mom Dot's house. Mom Dot is being kind enough to let me come hang out. So there we go. I think that's the big stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do we want to talk about the new release thing, or we want to save that?
That's all I got. That doesn't mean that's all you got. What have you got?
Well, I put together and launched the latest Patreon issue, right? Because the Warlock Patreon is Kobold Press every so often, and the topic for this one got me all excited because it took me back to my days on Dragon Magazine. It is, in fact, the Warlock zine devoted to dragons. It's Warlock 26.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So there are like dragon templates to make dragon mages and dragon priests out of regular stuff. There's subclasses. There's something by Gabe Hicks. I think it's a Warlock patron. And there's a giant chunk of lore by Richard Pedd about the Dragon Empire. So it's sweet. It's available to you don't have to be on the Patreon to get this thing. You can just pick up the PDF from the Kobold Press store. It's up there. But if you are on the Patreon, if you do back it, then you have probably already gotten a notice saying, hey, it's yours, or you've got your print copy in the mail, right? So,
yeah. And for those of you that don't know, that's one of the cool things about our Patreon is like you get something every month, y'all. Right?
No, well, yes.
I was about to say,
print,
since I've been here,
digital.
I was about to say, but you get something every month in terms of it.
At least.
Yeah, at least, bare minimum.
This month we did, last month we did Lair, we did Monsters, and we did the Dragon Zine. So yeah, you got 3 things, actually 2 sets of Monsters and a preview. Yeah, okay, you get a bunch of things.
You get a bunch of things. Yeah, that's what I mean is like joining the Patreon is no small thing. You get so much, and if you're like me, always looking for things, it's really nice. So
yes, full of surprises.
All right.
That is the one. I don't know if I have anything else. Maybe I got something. Maybe something will spring to mind later. But that was the one on my mind as the newness. Because man, yeah, I used to do a dragon issue every year at TSR, so it felt like old times, and people really delivered the goods.
Yeah, they did, and like just the lineup on that one alone. You said Gabe is in it. Celeste Conowitch has put something in it. And Richard, who we've had on here a few times, who is kind of a lore master of all things, what we do. So there you go, y'all. More than you can shake a finger at. Shake a kobold claw at. How about that?
Yes, we shake our little claws.
Our little claws. Speaking of kobold claws, y'all, did you know we have new kobold emotes? We do. We have a slew of new kobold emotes, including a kobold with a kazoo, which seems like the most appropriate emote for this channel to date. Though I'm a little fan of the Kobold like bro clasp. There's something about it I think is really cute. So you can get our emotes by subscribing to this channel. Not only does that subscription help us keep going, but it assures that we can pay our cast, make cool things, and continue to have chats just like this one ongoing. So, oh look, emotes. So it is the end. It is a new month. We are officially in June. I know where I'm at. That means if you have an Amazon Prime account, which I know most of you do, you get a free emote or a free subscription every month just to give away to whoever you want. And I can go ahead and tell you, us kobolds over here would gladly take your free subscription.
We really would.
You can connect your Amazon Prime account and you get that free sub, and we'll be happy. We still get the same amount of money. You don't get to pay anything, and you still get the emotes. So, and of course, last but certainly not least, I have to say this: Happy Pride, everybody! For all you kobolds out there, Happy Pride. So, thanks PH for resubscribing. We really appreciate that. And there we are. So, I think that's all the beans we have for the day.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other beans. Oh, just a happy reminder. We are starting a new actual play. The Scarlet Citadel kicks up next Tuesday night. So just under a week from today. Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're like all set to go on that. And you know what? I do have one more thing I can spoil, and Wolfgang doesn't even know this yet because it literally just finalized yesterday. Oh. We are going to have a very special all femme and non-binary identifying cast playing through a pirate adventure this summer right here on Kobold Press. I'm going to be GMing that one. I'm very, very excited. We've got all the streamers that are joining us for that are well, like I said, streamers. They're video game streamers. They're TTRPG streamers. So I'm very, very excited to have that table. Just got solidified. We'll be announcing cast hopefully sooner rather than later. And I can say that will be kicking up starting in July. So, we're going to hit those salty seas. Yeah.
Or should I say Captain Dot, right? Yar.
Yar. So we'll have something really, really fun coming before the summer is out. Something to wet your whistle. Except don't whistle on board a ship. It's actually bad luck. Okay. There you go. That is actually all the beans I have to spill. Now, let's talk the Shadow Realm. It's a very mysterious and kind of a lot of people have a lot of questions. I mean, even myself running through courts right now. I got questions. I got so many questions.
Well, it's not surprising there are questions because it started as a very thin thread a very long time ago. The whole shadow side of the adventures from Kobold Press and sort of lore and setting material leading up to things like Courts of the Shadow Fey.
Okay.
But I am going to be that old timer this Kobold chat who just says, well, it all started back in 2006. Because it kind of did, right? Like,
okay,
there was the very first mention of the Shadow Fey. I had to go digging a little. I'm like, it wasn't in Courts of the Shadow Fey. Was it in Return to Castle Shadow? No, it was in Castle Shadowcrag, an edition, a third edition D&D adventure.
Okay.
That Kobold Press released in 2007. It was literally the second thing we ever did. And that's where the Shadow Fey show up. And the art for it, okay, I sent you the art. Maybe you can put up the art.
Yeah, I totally can.
It says Shadow Fey under it, but today we'd call that a Shadow Goblin. But that's where they started, right? The little goofy goblin guy with the great big shadow that is...
I'm getting it.
Well, it kind of tells you a lot about where the Shadow Fey started, right? And we wanted to give them Celtic names. Oh my God. Yes, we had friends in Scotland and Ireland, and we said, well, what would they call themselves? And they're like, well, Shadow Fey in Gaelic is Scathe She. And I'm like, what did you say and how do you spell it?
Yeah.
Right? And so that was the name when they appeared as monsters. They weren't really even NPCs. They were little goblin-y guys. And then, so that was 2006, 2007. They appeared in Castle Shadowcrag. And they're they're just plain old monsters in there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but everybody liked them enough that when fourth edition came around, we did it again.
Mm.
uh, it's it's like, well, everybody liked them, and by the way, the Castle Shadowcrag thing was like done as a one-off that we promised we'd never sell it. We were just doing it for a small group,
Hmm.
like of play testers and designers back in the open design days on a forum. But come fourth edition, we said we want to publish this puppy. We want the Shadow
Mm.
Fae to be bigger and scarier, not goofy little goblin guys. The goblin
Yeah.
guys, well, the goblin guys stuck around.
They did. They
They
just became part of the ecosystem.
they became part of the ecosystem as shadow goblins. But we're like, no, it's hard to make an adventure for like seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th level characters with goblin villains.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we kind of upgun them into elves, and there's a piece of, well, there's the cover art. I'll talk about the cover in a minute. So the Shadow Fae, there's a black and white piece of art of them about to assassinate some poor priest fellow. Um, that is like the first art of them in the fourth edition era.
Hmm.
And they're human sized, right? They're elvish.
Right.
They're full on. Well, they're Shadow Fae the way we kind of know them now in fifth edition. Big enough to hold a sword, less kind of silly, more your time has come, old man, right? Like
Yeah.
they're they're mean.
They are
In
mean.
fourth edition, and that's where the advice to the game masters came too. They also think they're better than everyone else, right? That started in fourth edition. The Shadow Fae are convinced they are the best. They should rule the whole Shadow Realm. They should be it. And when humans and dwarves and others don't really like that attitude, then sparks fly and things get interesting.
Of course.
But
Huh.
yes, that art is from fourth edition, and then the cover art. There's a wonderful story behind the cover art for the fourth edition Courts of the Shadow Fae, which is, I really liked Stephanie Law's art at the time, and she wasn't as well known as she is today. Today she does gallery shows and all these beautiful watercolors and like covers for novels and her own. She's amazing. But back in, well, what was fourth edition? Like 2010, 2011. It was like 10 years ago, fourth edition, when it was just kicking off. That sounds about right. 2011. Anyway, Stephanie Law said, yeah. And it's spooky and haunting and everything you kind of want out of a fey dark forest with moonlight and owls and bones under the tree
Right.
roots. And
Yeah.
the more you stare at it, the more you go, what?
Who? Yeah.
We're not in a standard forest, we're in the Shadow Realm.
Mm.
So I still adore that cover, but obviously for fifth edition
Wait, is that the one with all of the color? It's the really colorful one, right?
it is colorful.
Yeah,
yes.
let me make sure I share that one because I want everybody to see it because it's really beautiful. Super duper beautiful. Actually, I'm gonna make it big and cover our faces.
It's got a firebird and it's got
Uh-huh.
sort of a Shadow Fae priestess with like elk horns and
One of the things that I love about it is it really feels like even when I opened up Courts of the Shadow Fae, it talks a lot about when they finally make it to the Shadow Realm. One of the things that they talk about is like the sky, the color of the sky, and the way everything is like kind of different. Like the aesthetic is so very different, and it's, yeah. I love this cover. I think it just such a, it's so beautiful.
Really,
it's so beautiful.
it's a fun piece. It's really, I don't know. So anyway, it was early for Stephanie Law's career, and we were lucky to get her cover on it. And it's always been sort of an inspiration. We should make a print or a wallpaper.
I was about to say that deserves to be a big old. I just want it in a poster. Like I'd want a big old framed poster of it.
Totally works for me. I don't know how big the original art is, but but yes. So something along those. Anyway, it really sets the mood for what the Shadow Realm's about. The aesthetic is so different. The sun never rises, but strange fey creatures somehow manage to
Yeah.
pull together a living.
A living,
Uh,
yeah. Make it work. Make it work.
uh-huh. So that's sort of like the older versions, and then we came around to fifth edition,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know that. I mean, you've seen some of the art for it. Um, we did a giant poster map in there in between too. There was a VTT edition in between
Yeah. And I think there's
where
going to be another. No, there is one because I'm using it for the fifth
yes,
edition. There is one because I'm using it right now.
the fourth edition one, and we might even have done a Pathfinder one. That poster map was large enough to print, and we did, but it wasn't really big enough to go full bore on a VTT.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the weird little quirks is that map. We printed the same map again in fifth edition, or we put it out on VTTs. But in between, we'd gone back to the cartographer and said, if we asked you to draw the same map with 4 times more detail, what would you say? And he'd say, oh, thank God, it was hard cramming it all in last
Right.
time, right? Right? Like, and then he asked, well, is this a paying gig? And I'm like, yeah.
Yes, of course, of course.
But it was wonderful. He was willing to go back and do an upgunned, higher resolution, more beautiful, more detailed. Like everything about that poster just got better from edition to edition.
Yeah, for sure. I love the cover. Wait, is it the cover or is it the chapter art for the new Courts of the Shadow Fae? The one with they're like they look so cheeky, like staring
Yes.
over their shoulder. They've got that like side eye, it's just so Shadow Fae. It's so Shadow Fae.
Yes, it's like, oh, we're so superior.
Look at my collar and my gold, but I definitely will take your head if you say the wrong thing. Like it's just such a mood. I love it. It's one of my favorite
Right?
favorite ones.
That's Marcel Mercado, who has been doing Kobold Press art for I don't know how many years, but he's just always delivered the goods, right? Like he comes in,
Yeah.
he says, what do you want? We tell him, and he hands us like 3 different sketches,
Beautiful.
and usually it's, well, I like this one, no, that one, no, they're all good. And he makes it really tough because he gets it right, especially sort of Fey themes. He also did a bunch of art for the Southlands and for Deep Magic. So there's a reason we keep calling on him, and I guess the assignments we give him are interesting enough that he keeps coming back and saying, yeah, I'll do one more.
I'll do one more. Maybe just one more.
One more.
So, okay, for everybody that's in chat that, like, let's say they have no idea what the Shadow Realm is. Can you give us, like, the 101?
Sure. The Shadow Realm predates the Shadowfell, but it's very similar, right?
Okay.
It's a plane of shadows and darkness. In the case of the Shadow Realm, there's a lot of ghouls, there's a lot of undead generally, there's the bear folk everywhere, and there's the Shadow Fae and the Shadow Goblins. Those are sort of your big power players, right? We haven't even talked about the bear folk and the druids and the Shadow Nars and all that, and we haven't talked about the Twilight Empire or the ghouls and all the deep dark secrets in that. And we have talked about the Shadow Goblins, but there's a whole lot more. So one thing people think when they hear Courts of the Shadow Fae is, oh, well, this might be a setting book, right? And some people are excited when they hear, no, it's an intrigue-based campaign full of Fae and mystery. And other people go, well, I want it to be that and a setting book. And so lately I've been pulling together my notes on, well, we wrote the Warlock Guide to the Shadow Realm, which is out there on the Kobold Press store and gives you like a major city, Coramel, the City of Lanterns.
One of my favorite cities, by the way. I love the City of Lanterns. It's so cool.
Yeah. Kelly Pollack wrote it. And, there wasn't much to go on. Most of it's whole cloth from her. And it's fantastic. And it's there. But it feels like at some point we got to pull together more of the setting information than that Guide to the Shadow Realm has. Or the Midgard World Book, of course, has a chapter on it.
Correct. That's what Dot has read. That's my homework. I did that much homework.
Right? And I think most of that is good, but some of the emphasis is like, well, there's a lot about the ghouls here, but not all that much about the Fey
Right.
Courts, and not a lot about the Bear Folk, like some, and very little about the
Yeah,
Shadow Goblins.
they mentioned them as part of like the ideal hunting parties for the Shadow Realm,
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of the bear folk are part of the hunting parties. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, there's definitely room for more. As Doozer
Yes.
said, some people just want all the things. I'm some of those people.
Yes. Well, I mean, the Shadow Realm, I mean, the reason we keep coming back to it is not just it's popular, and other companies don't seem to hit this flavor very often, right? Like it's a style of fantasy that's popular, but not a lot of people like to write it, or people aren't
Yep.
sure how to run it, or I'm not sure. But every time we do it, everyone's like, oh, great, we've never seen this before. I'm like, no, we did it for 4th edition. No, we did it for 3.5, guys. I love it to pieces because it's mega gothic and mega
Yes.
dark. And like, if you go back to the Castle Shadowcrag thing, like the subtitle is a gothic adventure for 12th level characters or something like that.
At least it knows what it is.
Right? And if you go to the 4th edition version of Courts of the Shadow Fae, it starts off with poetry.
Okay.
By Lord Byron, of all people.
Oh, you're so angsty. So angsty.
So angsty. I can't even tell you. Like, and it starts. Well, man, I'm gonna quote you a little of Lord Byron just because I'm feeling that.
Oh,
here.
clip it, y'all. All right.
Yeah, I can't declaim it in a proper British fashion, but it sort of sets the tone. So we'll go no more a roving, so late into the night, though the heart be still as loving and the moon be still as bright. For the sword outwears its sheath and the soul wears out the breast, and the heart must pause to breathe and love itself have rest.
Ooh.
And I'm like, ooh, everybody's dying.
Perfect.
And
yeah.
It's pretty grim, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's I remember when I cracked open Courts. It was so funny. I was like, oh wait, we started Zobek? Because like I so desperately wanted them to get to the Shadow Realm, and the first part of that module is not in the Shadow Realm. Like getting the there's a huge part of their journey to just find it, and then there's a lot of lore. This may be a spoilerific chat, so for everybody that's watching Courts of the Shadow Fae, you've been warned.
Spoilers.
You've been warned. But, the history there of the Shadow Realm being a place that's much older than the free city of Zobek and the Marguerite Forest and the things that are in that area, because you're getting this idea that for whatever reason, the Fey Queen feels like she has dibs, right? And everybody's well, we've been here, and she's like, I had dibs before y'all ever got here, so now you're just my dibs. And so there's like this kind of deep history and lore of something that happened in the past, and now she's cashing in on it. She wants what
And it doesn't matter who the player characters are.
Nope.
It's like, newcomers, my claim has priority.
Right.
Y'all suck. Right.
Yeah.
I'm the best.
I came off vacation. I finally decided to take what's mine. It just took me 100 years. It's fine. Or like 200 years. Like, it's whatever. Yeah.
Like, I like the fact that the Fey adventures that Kobold Press has done, and this isn't just Courts of the Shadow Fey, it's like Wrath of the River King and the Bramble King stuff that that Mike Wellham did, and even some of the Margrave more Fey bits. The Fey don't play by human rules, right?
No.
Like, they just don't care what you think, because
they're basically Dot. I just show up. I don't care what you think. No, I'm just kidding. No.
I'm just gonna be here, and y'all will cater.
Y'all
right?
will deal.
Like
yeah. I'm not that much of a diva, I swear.
No, but they are, right?
They are.
That's sort of their whole shtick is, and they've got servants and they've got shadow goblins for comic relief. I've been coming up with I don't know if this is a spoiler. I've been coming up with lists of names for shadow goblins for some reason lately.
Oh.
And they're fun and they're silly, right? Their names like, I don't know, Picklehead or Mooncatcher, right?
Yeah.
And Okay, you guys are silly. I'm making up silly
It
names.
reminds
Half
me of the Yule Lads. You know who the Yule Lads are? The
No, who
Yule
are these
Lads
guys?
are part of they're part of Yule tradition. They're alongside Krampus and
Right.
the Yule Cat and a bunch of these other things. But the Yule Lads are, I think there's 12 or 13 of them. They're kind of like gnomish type beings, and they're
Okay.
mischievous, and they are all named after their MO. So it's like spoon licker, pot thief. And so what they do is they come around, and if you've been bad, they are mischievous and they'll come in and steal your pots or lick your spoons, or like, so they have these ridiculous names that are literally just their modus operandi, like exactly what they do when they come in and cause mischief, but they're totally invisible, and the Yule Lads will cause you problems for the days leading up to Yule.
Where do they come from? Is this like a Swedish thing or what?
I believe it's Icelandic. They're part of Icelandic lore. So they come out of, what is it? They're Freya's children. They're
Oh,
part of
Freya.
her.
Well, we
Yeah.
could have a talk about Freya sometime. It's sort of tangential to the Shadow Realm, but
Yes, it
yes.
is. It is
Okay.
very, yeah. So this is what made me think of it, because when you were naming all of these goblins, I was like, oh my god, these are just the Yule Lads.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly the tone, right? Because they're like, they think they're serious people, but they're not.
They're not.
And they have a little town, but most of the Shadow Goblin stuff in the Shadow Realm, like, they're servants for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the Shadow Fey Queen says, I need somebody to run the kitchen and fetch the apples and chase the ducks. Goblins get on it. Um, and so long as the duck eggs keep showing up and somebody brings in the apples, the queen doesn't ask too many questions about what happens downstairs. And I have done this a couple of times in adventure design. I did it in a Call of Cthulhu scenario too, where there's upstairs, downstairs, right?
Oh.
And you can play the adventure as upper class or lower class, and it's two different adventures.
That's pretty
I
cool.
think Courts is almost that, right? Because
Yep.
the status rules, I should point out this little bit of history. The status rules that are in the Midgard World Book, they were introduced in 4th edition Courts of the Shadow Fae. Because there's that whole thing about elite guys as villains that is part of Courts. But to codify that in game rules, you need a number, right? So I threw the status number out there, and it was just a kludge or a hack at first, but it pretty quickly became clear that it was a good way to manage courtly intrigue and sort of help players know where they were on the ladder.
Yeah.
Which is great, because when you're down with the Shadow Goblins, no one cares if you're famous. They just care about, can you eat the whole pie? Like, what ridiculous thing can you do to entertain us?
So classy.
Right. Yeah. That's where, like, it's sort of the frat house section of the Courts. But if you are in the upper crusty bit, then it very much matters where you're seated at the table, right? And who you know. And it started as an optional rule in Courts, and eventually it's not a note we hit that often in Midgard Adventures. But now and again, especially where there are elves or fae involved, the status rules are real helpful. So
I'm very excited. We're actually gonna start. We will implement a lot heavier those status rules, I think, this upcoming Monday, because they're actually going to make it to the Courts, hopefully. Knock on wood.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So if everybody tunes in, you should see them in action, because they're actually one of the things that I liked most about Courts of the Shadow Fae. I thought it was a really interesting, because as a GM, like, let's be real, a lot of D&D is built around combat, like beat it, kill it. Right?
Yes.
So to have something that's more social combat, or to focus on a social combat mentality, and the way that status has been added to kind of facilitate that, I thought was really super duper interesting. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad. It's, not every GM takes to it. Some groups decide it's a mystery adventure and pursue that. And some decide that there are ways to hack your way through it. Like the courts. Here we go with spoilers again. It's not all Fey, right? There are creatures from elsewhere in the planes that wander in and out of the courts, and some of them aren't that friendly. So if your barbarian is just itching for a combat because it's been all tea times and snobbery, like,
I mean, give him a proper duel.
Possible.
I was about to say, give him a court
rules,
duel.
Yes.
You know, I think those are really interesting too, because I kind of told my group, I was like, look, if any of you come in with a barbarian, that is fine. I'm never going to stop you. Just know the court people may not be nice to you. That's all. You know, you can totally do this or you can totally do that. Just know if you walk in as a dwarf, they may have feels about your presence in comparison to, you know, the other things. So that's really interesting.
Like down in the Goblin Hall, you'll be a champion of belching and farting, and that will be great.
Different kind of, yeah, you get a participation trophy.
It won't get you any traction upstairs. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the tall goblin. Harry, send him back down. Right? Like, they won't put up with it. But yes, some character concepts are fun because they're so fish out of water in this environment, right? They're optimized for combat and they suck in the Shadow Realm. Well, they just don't have the innate advantages, right? And bards, on the other hand, seem to be made for it. So.
Yeah, good news is we only ended up with one bard at our table, which is a ++. I think we ended up with a warlock, a cleric, a bard, and a druid. So very interesting. Like, not heavy combat group, which is kind of interesting.
Right, that's good.
Yeah. You know, a little, like, we have like a nymph. She's kind of like a nymph. We've got and then the other two I think are a high elf and a proper shadow fae, like born, not raised though. That's the big mystery. Ooh. Why have they never been to the Shadow Realm? So we're still, that's not been given away yet. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's not like everything in the Shadow Realm is courtly and Fey-like. I mean, you can bring in a ranger and have a grand old time because there's wilderness everywhere. Oh yeah, right?
Yeah, if you can survive it.
If you can survive, you could take your rogue into Coramel. It's a big city, like any big city, with a few quirks. But I mean, it's not like you need to spend, or you need to think of the place as pure social combat all the time. But certainly that adventure is heavy on interaction and who you know and what you learn. And at some point there is some combat toward the end there. Oh yeah. I remember.
Yeah. Oh, right. So we've actually had 2 questions come through. One early on, and I want to make sure I don't forget it, which was asking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition, if we think we'll ever bring some fresh Pathfinder around.
Oh, well, we did a version of Courts of the Shadow Fae for Pathfinder 1st Edition. And Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's tough. I mean, I look at the Pathfinder audience and I say, wow, for years that was the place to be. And right now, it's still sort of split. I'm afraid that what happened is, like, as opposed to, I don't know, what happened from 3rd to 4th edition or something, like, now there's half the people playing Pathfinder 1st and half the people playing Pathfinder 2nd, which makes me sad because it means as a third-party publisher, it's really hard to say, we're going to put all the amount of effort into half the audience.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, we might, but we've got our hands full at the moment, and I wouldn't count on a whole lot of Pathfinder 2nd Edition support.
Yeah.
Though, I don't want to promise too much, but what I'm hoping for is that someone who really knows Pathfinder 2e shows up, says, hey, I've already done a conversion of this module, and we could try it as an experiment, right?
Oh, that might be great.
But I don't know. We're really committed to 5th edition at the moment and have been for years. So
right, yeah. Y'all, speaking of handfuls, do you see those swanky deep magic cards that Dot laid out for all of you? Just saying, they looked great. If you missed it, go hit our Twitter. I did a time lapse of unboxing. So
Oh, that was
many cards, y'all.
cards.
So many
Yes.
cards.
I
So I
think
had to throw
people
that out.
don't know what they're in for. Like, we're going to deliver those come the fall, and
I
they're
did
just going to
not.
go.
I did not. Like they're like, oh, we've got 1,400 cards coming. I'm like, cool, 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 cool. The box showed up, and I was like, whoa. And then I opened the box, and I was like, whoa. And then you open another box, and it's like the box themselves look like they're like tarot deck size, but they're actually two smaller sets in one box. So then you open it up, and then there's double stack. Like, holy moly at the cards! Holy
I
moly at the
know.
cards.
I was later, much too late. I said to myself, well, that's like 30 poker decks, right? Like,
Basically, that's basically it. So, before I lose this question, because this is court specific. Well, it is Shadow Fey specific. So,
okay.
Sarastra, right, or Sarastra, right, is
Uh-huh.
considered to be somewhat evil.
Little.
She's done some dark things, and this person's interested in where she falls for you as like on that good evil line because
Yeah. Well, so I'll preface the whole thing by saying Midgard pantheons aren't big on alignment, and my editor just about strangled me. Uh, this is Kim Mohan when he was editing Southlands, and I'm like, "Well, here's my pantheon chapter, Kim, and it's full of all these gods." And he's like, "Your alignments are all one axis short, like they're all chaos or
right.
good, but they don't have full D&D alignments." I'm like, "That's right, Kim." He's like, "You're gonna have to explain it because not everybody knows what the heck you're doing." Um, but yeah, Midgard gods don't always have full alignments because they have multiple modes,
Yeah.
right? Like they'll speak to humans out of one mouth and they'll speak to the dwarves in a slightly different but related way. So Sarastra, I tend to think of her as neutral, but a little bit of a champion for the Shadow Fae. And
Mm-hmm.
if that means she has to kick a whole lot of butt and people don't like her
I
because she
mean,
does it in a Shadow Fae kind of way, they'll all think she's
she
evil.
is
But,
the queen of night and magic, right?
right.
Like,
But that
what
can
you
be,
expect from the queen of night and magic, you know what I mean?
but the Queen of Night and Magic, okay, well, so part of the inspiration for her, of course, um, is operatic, right? The Queen
Mm.
of Night and Magic from Mozart's
Mm-hmm.
Magic Flute, and there's that aria "Der Hölle Rache,"
Yeah.
which is hard to pronounce with the umlauts, but whatever. That inhuman aria, which is like only mezzo sopranos can hit. I don't know. It's crazy, but she sounds like a Fey person in this operatic thing, and it's a human voice. And that was part of like, well, what does this goddess sound like? Oh, she sounds like this. She doesn't sound like a normal speaking human.
Yeah.
Um, she's just bigger than that, right? She doesn't give a damn
Yeah.
in
She
the in
doesn't.
the
She
tradition.
doesn't.
Yeah. So, and by the way, you made a deal, right? And by you, she means your human great 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 grandfathers,
Correct.
and you should remember that. And if they
So
didn't tell
that's
you,
actually
it's not
my
her
next
problem.
question. Exactly. That's what she like. She showed up. So again, spoilerific. So that was actually my next question, right? Because clearly she is showing up at the top of courts with some
Yep.
expectation, right? Like she's walked into
Yeah.
the city of Zobek. She sent her soldiers, her footmen in. She's clearing out the sun god and all of his priests. Like she's here to stay, she believes, and
Right.
she's just here to cash in on her winnings, even if she
Yes.
made that deal generations ago. So, why don't can you tell us a little bit about that deal and what went down with the Stras family and like how all that happens?
Sure.
Yeah.
There was a long time ago. Well, so she's offered this deal more than once, and the humans who took it are the Stras family. And the deal is basically, I will give you shadow and power and illusion, and you will rule as kings. Um, in exchange for, little things, the occasional eldest child, the occasional vows of fealty, and please go kill my enemies. But it's sort of a straight up Faustian bargain. And the Strauss family said, "Great, we want to be in charge of all the humans." And she's like, "Yeah, humans, fine. You can be in charge of them." Um, because it wasn't that important as being in charge of the elves or something, right? So the Stras family took that deal and it worked for them until Sarastra and the Shadow Fae kind of lost interest in the mortal world for a while because they were having their own little fights off in the Shadow Realm. And so the Stras family had a bunch of cool magic and arcane lore and all this stuff, but what they didn't have was an ongoing line to power because she'd kind of left, her vacation home to go to her summer home, that kind of deal. Um, and during that period, all the other humans in Zobek said, "We've had it with you." And there was a revolt, and the Stras were all executed. Like, they were
Oops.
wiped.
Oops.
Yes. Because they were not nice people, frankly. And
What?
it
No.
was sweet, juicy justice. They totally had it coming. But that's why Zobek's a free city, right? The Stras were her hand and the ones who enforced the bargain. And as long as they were in charge, which was up until 80 years ago, it was working out the way she figured it would, even when she wasn't there. And when they got overthrown by a rabble of, humans, dwarves, and Gearforged, um, eventually word got back to the Fey Courts.
Yeah.
Hey, those Stras people? They haven't sent a tribute or an apprentice or we haven't adopted any changelings out of that family. And oh god, it must be 50 or 60 years now, Your Highness. And oh really? Has it been that long? Is that a long time for them? How long does it take a human to make a child? And like,
Don't they just grow those?
don't they
Have
grow
some
them like
water?
apples? Right? They're like apple trees. I'm pretty sure that's how humans do this. And whatever, she kind of poked at it and it's like, what? No, that's mine, right? Like, and my designated representatives are no longer in charge. Well, this seems to be a problem. That's sort of the backstory that I don't think is spelled out in quite that level of detail, because as far as the players are concerned, what matters is she's shown up, her troops are around, she has an ambassador who's issuing decrees and pronouncements. Like, that's the immediate problem,
Yeah.
not, oh gosh, the Stras all died 80 years ago and we can't prop one up to say, no, they're still in charge, it's okay, you can leave now.
Right? So nobody's in charge, and now the queen's bored, and she showed up and like, I
Well,
think I'll take this back now.
the humans have a mayor.
That she don't care about.
That is not her mayor.
That's not
Right?
her
He
mayor,
doesn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
But
another
yes.
great question. And please, more questions. I'll just make sure that I see them in chat. You may have to ping me a couple times. Because chat, y'all are hyped today about all this kazoo stuff. We're gonna have to just put together a book of only kazoo things. Like, I feel like we need a Kobold Press guide to kazoos.
All right. There is one kazoo in Vault of Magic. I know because I wrote it.
Yeah, a vault of kazoos, because we've got a kazoo bagpipe. There's some
Ooh,
we're talking
yes.
about, like, all kinds of ridiculous things surgically. Okay. Body modifications, who surgically implant a series of metal kobolds along their rib cage so they get blown when they breathe, so that you just are always kazooing.
Tactical kazoos. Cyber kazoos.
Yeah, a bagpipe with kazoos. Yeah, just ridiculous.
Throwing star kazoos.
Yeah, throwing kazoos. The list goes on and on. But our actual question, which I think is a good one, where is Ashragora located in the Shadow Realm?
Oh, that's such a good question. I love that question because I know the answer and I can't tell. I've been.
You
Well,
can't
all right.
tell. Okay, but if you can't, why can't you tell? Is it super
Well,
secret, Wolfgang?
it's super secret. I've kind of been working on the Shadow Realm a little. There's this map, right? I felt like the maps in the World Book were good,
Yeah.
but we could do more. And so I'm like, well, where are the Bearfolk Glades? They're not actually in the World Book map. And neither is the city fallen into shadow. And Coramel is, but not much south of the river. And anyway, I'm like, I've got a bunch of notes. What if I can make an actual map that would do that?
Oh.
This is sort of the first stage of my design process, is draw the map. So I'm afraid I may be starting a project that turns into something. at some point.
Oh, okay. I see.
It could just be a poster map of the Shadow Realm. It could be as simple as that. I hand it to somebody. I say, here's a poster map of the Shadow Realm. Here's the city fallen into. Here's Ostragora. Here's Coramel. Here's additional Bearfolk groves.
Oh.
There is a free and independent city of Shadow Goblins. It is a very silly place.
The free city of Shadow Goblins?
Yes, it's called Vandeval. They have a king and everything. You better respect them.
Do they respect themselves?
They do. They have good boundaries. This is ours and that's yours. Stay out.
Everybody knows I love gobos too. Goblins are one of my favorite. Anytime I need just a solid NPC to like shake up the group, I always make it a goblin. Yeah. Because I love doing goblin voices.
Yes. They're fun.
Goblins are the best. They're the best.
They are. They're squeaky and they're fun, and they're a lot less scary than like psychic vampires, for instance.
I would fully agree with that.
Or cities full of psychic. Anyway, I think that monster might have been one that Jeff Grubb wrote, the psychic vampire and the city fallen into. That whole bit of lore that got tucked into the Shadow Realm later was just mildly. Was it Jeff? I gotta go look it up. But it was kind of just a note that we dropped out there, and then people have been asking about it ever since. So I guess this question in chat might make me go look at it some more. It'll make it more than a dot on the map. No, I'm not promising nothing, but I'm gonna go look at it because now I'm curious.
Well, now you guys have inspired Wolfgang to go deeper, so it's all your fault.
Yeah, it is. I'll have to put it near the ghouls. I don't know. We'll think about it. It's a good question.
All right, off topic while y'all keep tossing us questions. So long ago, I wrote up a system for goblins where as goblins come of age, they have to go through a fraternity sorority type Greek life type situation. And I wrote a whole series of one-shots that are all about mitigating the life of goblin fraternity and sororities, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not tied to gender, for the record, because goblins. But right. It is absolutely making fun of college life. There were giant panty raids. They had to go get a giant's underwear. They had just ridiculous we things.
Should bring back the Goblin Brewery. We used to publish something called the Goblin Brewery or something along those lines, which is what it sounds like. Yeah. An exploding brewery full of goblins where everything goes wrong all the time. It's there's giant frogs hopping around. It's a convention adventure, right? It's like 3 good scenes and a cloud of fury. And
what was I had a goblin
run that at every Gen Con.
What was it? Steph's right. I have a shirt somewhere. I had a friend make it for me. It looks like a fraternity sorority group, but it's just like Delta Kappa Goblin or something like that. It's not actually. It just has all of the symbols, and we made up a goblin symbol. It's ridiculous.
Kappa Gamma Goblin.
Yeah, Kappa Gamma Goblin or something like that. So, anyways, all right. Another good question. So, Surastra, right? This queen of night and magic. I'm guessing this person wants to know her relationship with wild magic. If she's the queen of night and magic, does she have? What's her connection to wild magic?
I don't think there's anything canonical about her connection with wild magic, but I would say that a lot of Fey magic and wild magic seems to have certain themes and stuff in common, right? If you're summoning a horde of blue frogs, chances are you're either a wild mage or some gnome doing Fey magic. So thematically it fits, but it's not official.
Yeah. Yep. Ran of Game of Goblins in the brewery long ago at a con where the party took over the brewery and wanted to turn it into a candy shop. How thoroughly wholesome.
Yes. I mean, right?
Wholesome.
That's what I love about convention games is you sort of set up a premise and this is what we're going to do. And then you all go off and, wander on to the next game. But some of them you remember for years. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we still have a few minutes. We've got about 10. So any last minute questions? Actually, I think I'm going to ask the next one. It is not relevant to goblins, and it is relevant to the Shadow Realm. So with Courts of the Shadow Fae, when you actually arrive in the Shadow Realm, when they finally figure out the ritual, and they do all the stuff, and they take the boat under the bridge, and they make it to the other side. Spoiler alert. there's a really wonderful description about the Shadow Realm and how, much like we add things like rough terrain changes stuff, like here it's hard to sleep and breathe and exist because it's a really dark place. So maybe some info for chat on like the state of the Shadow Realm. Like what makes it so different? Why is it this kind of strange reflection of another place? Why is it a
Right.
Can you spill any of that?
Well, I mean, some of it isn't hard to spill, right? Some of it is just like, why why are the hells hostile to human life, right? Why are they full of fire and acid and devils? Well, that's just the way they
That's just the way it
are,
is, right?
right? And for the Shadow Realm, partly it's that. Um, my own take on it is that if you know some tricks, right? Like you can probably survive there for a goodly while. And if you were born there, of course, you're accustomed to it, right? If you're one of the Shadow Fae, if you're a Shadow Goblin, if you're one of the Bear folk, frankly, who seem to have some trick to surviving there. Um, or heck, if you're one of the Daracool, you're undead to begin with, and it really doesn't bother you.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
Right? But for visitors, yeah, it's more hostile than you can still breathe. Look at the upside, right? Like breathing is
Like
so easy.
50%.
and there's animals and food, kind of, although they look strange and taste wrong.
I
And
described it as one of them plucked a piece of fruit and I was like, it's like biting into balsa wood. It's like
yeah,
not it is not a fruit, but it is a fruit, you know? It's like, but it doesn't really offer you any sustenance. It's kind of gross.
I know. And I think making everything sort of washed out and awful kind of makes it more wonderful when they show up somewhere like Coromel, where it's like,
Yes.
oh my goodness, a whole city of people with food and, stuff that tastes
And
like stuff.
water that's real
Water.
water.
And I think one of the secrets to survival for most of the places like Coromel, right,
Mhm.
or the Fey Courts or the Barefolk Groves is, they wander back into the mortal realm and pick apples there and bring them back instead of trying to grow an apple orchard
Right.
of twisted green, you know, Snow White kind of
Right.
apples in the Shadow Realm. So it's harder. Agriculture is harder.
Yeah.
Food and survival is harder. It's not impossible. Plenty of people live there. Um, and as I've been poking at it, I'm like, yeah, there are ways to cheat the system, but for mortals, they don't know it. And it's a little bit, to my mind, like in game, you want them to feel that difficulty when they first arrive,
Mm-hmm.
and then you want to hand wave it pretty quickly,
Correct. You
right?
wanted to like set the mood.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like after 3 or 4 sessions in the Shadow, I'm not like, okay, the fruit still tastes like balsa wood. Don't forget, the water's real skunky. Like, no, we know, right? Like,
Yep.
don't.
That's why I thought
But
it was such a great setup because it's such a shell shock. Like literally passing under a bridge and rolling up and into another place like a portal. And the ground is dry and dead and like it's
oh
just
man,
so different than leaving
yes.
the
Well,
river
every
there.
Fey portal. Oh gosh, I shouldn't talk about the Shadow Road section I just wrote, but I feel
I was about to say I
compelled
was
to
gonna
say.
ask you about the Nelfheim Road, but I won't if I need to remain. We can
No,
ask that
well,
later.
there's a long tradition on that, right? That's not even specific necessarily to the Shadow Realm, but just fantasy in general, right? Like you've seen people put little tiny fairy doors in their gardens, maybe, or up against the curb, right? Like little gardener people will
Mm-hmm.
do this stuff. Um, Ireland, England, and all of Europe have this tradition of, you know, where does that barrow mound go to? Well, if you go into the old barrow mound, you're traveling under the hill
Mm-hmm.
to where goblins or somebody lives. And every sort of interesting bridge or forest or grove could be an entrance to, I mean, Iceland, it has no trees, but they know where the fairies live in Iceland, right? It's still unknown thing. And even I was reading the BBC's thing on yeah, it was a barrow tomb that got bulldozed and everybody was upset because like, you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
You're upsetting the spirits, right?
Yeah. Don't
Um
upset the spirits.
and so all of those weird gates and portals and
Mm.
entrances that Midgard has that connect to the World Tree or the Shadow Realm have are pulling from that tradition,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a blast to say, well,
Very
if you
cool.
know what you're doing, yeah,
It's very cool.
um, you can get through it.
Um, that's very cool. It's like you're the little door. So I have a friend who's an artist, and she does. It's called Tiny Doors ATL, but she inspired me. Now, anytime one of my friends like leaves town or moves somewhere, I paint
Mm-hmm.
them a tiny door and I give them one, and then I paint a matching one for me. So I have a collection of all these tiny doors that connect to wherever they're going, so they can
Oh,
install them, and I can always have a doorway to my friend. So you said that it made my heart swell a little bit because that's so yeah. I
yay!
give little doors to people, which
You
is so
know, the
ridiculous. I don't know if they ever install them or what they do with them. Sometimes they do stuff with them, sometimes they don't. But
I'm just
you know,
writing this down, Dot, to put in the next hallway full of gnomes or something,
yeah, it's just
right?
like a hallway full of tiny doors, and then
They're
all
all
those tiny
painted different colors, and everyone leads to another gnome's house,
house.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's like when you come of gnome age or when you take your first great gnome trip, you get your door
mhm.
back home. It is Fey nonsense, Doozer, but Fey Queen. So
Yes. I mean, that stuff is fun. And, a group of players, when you've got a lot of time, or if you're just enjoying, hey, there's 6 doors, they're painted white, pink, blue, green.
yeah.
Well, we want to open all of them. Are you sure? Why did I put this in there? Right? Like,
Yeah, and see,
now we're going to
I'm
spend
the
20
crazy
minutes.
I'm the crazy GM that'd be like, okay, you've got a bunch of doors. This door is red, this door is white. It leads to a pink door.
Yes.
Or like this yellow door and this red door lead to the orange door. Or like so that my players are like, oh my god, the color theory, like whoa. Or like yeah, so anyways, this is
A
I'm
nonsense of this kind is a blast.
yes, it
I
is.
think it sends people into the right mood for sort of Shadow Realm and weird non. It's the opposite of like grim, dark,
Mm.
real, mundane fantasy. It's a little bit weird and wonderful, and that's what I like about the Shadow Realm.
So this is it's kind of a question, kind of a statement, but it'll be our last one since we are in our last minute of today. So is there
All
any
right,
reason for the large amount of Shadow Fae and Runkelstad? Stad?
Runkelstad, yes.
Outside of the ley lines and the shadow portals. This person says they love that city. They based an entire campaign out of it.
Oh, cool. Well, Runkelstad used to be an independent polity, right? It used to have its own entirely separate rulers and the like, and then it kind of got absorbed into larger sections of the Crossroads. I think the Magdar grabbed it. But my take on it is, the Shadow Fade deal made to the Stras was probably made to the rulers in
Mm.
Runkelstad at some point, and maybe
Oh.
there's still some connection there. Um, or maybe there's just a Shadow Road portal that's a little easier to access than the one in Zobek, because the
Hmm.
one in Zobek got nailed shut after the
Yes.
revolt,
Uh
right?
huh.
Like they didn't find every entrance, but they tried real hard to say, all right, everywhere the Strauss built a door, let's close it. Um, whereas in Runkelstadt, maybe there was no revolt, so something else is going on there.
So what I heard is more to come on that because I can see it
Yes.
in your eyes. Wolfgang's plotting something, everybody. Wolfgang's plotting something.
Hey, they've got a cool College of Magic there too. It's a fun town, and there's so much less canonical lore in Runkelstadt. You can, as a GM, you have free reign, right? You don't
Yeah.
have to know Zobek's history. You go your way with it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, we are at time. Any last thoughts, words? For the
Sure.
those
Well,
those folks in chat.
I'm just super happy with Courts of the Shadow Fae hitting Twitch streaming and a great cast, and like it's from my perspective, we've done Courts of the Shadow Fae over and over and over in different editions of Dungeons and Dragons, and now we're bringing it into the streaming era, and it's just great because every time somebody brings something new, and this time I think what we've got is a Fey queen worthy of the name and those things,
Yeah.
right? So I just, it's a fun capstone for campaigns, and yeah, there's more to come on that sometime when I get my act together.
Soon.
But soon, I hope. We'll see. But it's always fun to talk about it. If you ever want to do a deep dive on super deep lore, or if you just want to go once over lightly about something, you know where to find me.
That's true. Well, it was actually this chat is brought to you by all of you who keep telling us you want more lore conversations around Midgard, and even some of the stuff that isn't just tied to Midgard, like some of our beasts
Yeah.
and those kind of things. So
If
we're
there
working
are
on it.
lore topics, right? If there are lore topics people want to throw into chat, like Runkelstad or whatever, or bring in Richard Green for
Yep.
one, or bring in Megan for
Yep.
one, or Jeff Grubb, or hey man, give us.
So
give us
we
next
need
week's
to
topic.
know what you want to know, because all of you have all of these questions about Midgard. I'm learning about Midgard as you're all learning about it. I'm trying really hard to do my homework ahead of time. Courts has been very, very fun for me, and now with Scarlet Citadel coming, I'm doing a different kind of homework, but still doing my homework. Yeah. So remember that it's this is our little Kobold happy place, and we'd love to share more Kobold Press lore with you. So best thing to do is ping us on social media. I actually think this conversation came out of a YouTube comment that was left. And there is a community Discord. There's a Kobold community Discord, and we have an official Kobold Press forum, I believe, inside of that. And you can ping Victoria there, and she's our community manager, and she'll grab those. That's how I found out all of you wanted more info on the Shadow Realm. So, we're working on it. We're going to be doing more of this in between. We've got some really exciting guests coming on over the next couple weeks to talk a little bit more about a variety of things, but I would love to do more lore dumps. So, yeah, it seems like all of you want it as well. So, keep us going here on the Kobold Press Twitch channel by supporting us with your eyes and your ears, always the best form of currency, followed very quickly by your bits and your tips and your subscription. So if you've subscribed today, thank you so very much. And if you've supported us in another way, you've gone out, maybe picked up your Courts of the Shadow Fey book, know that all those things help keep our little Kobold train trucking. I think that's it. We'll be back Monday, everybody, with, I believe it's episode 5. Of Courts of the Shadow Fey. And then Tuesday night, we have our premiere of the Scarlet Citadel. So if you have not had a chance, our cast is out. It's a killer crew. V Muse is going to be running us through that. And I'm so excited. I finished building my little Darrow character today. So you want to see Dot play a really kooky little critter. I'm very excited. I ride a cave goat. It's going to be awesome. You'd like to see, interesting, some undersea stuff. Well, asking ye shall might receive while we hit the 7 seas this summer. Who knows what I'll come up with. So yeah, keep us posted. Tell us what you want. We're out there listening to you, and we really appreciate the. I don't have a name for him yet, Amanda. I don't have a name for my cave goat yet. Technically, my Darrow's parents attempted to feed them to this same cave goat all those many years ago, whole. That's how they lost their mind. So, anybody think of a really great goat name, you let me know.
It's a pretty typical Darrow childhood, really.
Really, yeah. You just wake up one day and the parents are like, feed him to the goat. Oh, and then when you're in the belly of the beast, you see the void. Seems pretty normal to me. Awesome. Well, before we keep Wolfgang any longer, we're going to close out our day. You'll find us here, same Kobold time, same Kobold channel next week. And if you'd like to get caught up, go hit our YouTube where you can catch up on all of our actual plays as well as our Kobold chats. We talk all kinds of things, but all of it is about Kobold Press. So we will see you all next week. What is that age-old saying? Don't do anything a Kobold wouldn't do? Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.